we're going to go ahead and get started. Everybody's here. We got the screen going. We got this. We got that. We got this. Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie with Girls of the Fly. For those of you who don't know me, but everybody knows me here probably. Flown with some of you, and some of you I haven't. We have flown together. We haven't flown together, correct? Anyways, so today we're doing a systems master course. We've had a few check rides in the last couple months, and something that they were missing was the systems. We were a little light on the systems, so we wanted to dig deep. So I've been flight instructing for just a few years, and I fly corporate, for those of you who don't know, and then I also am a real estate broker, so that's a little bit about me. I have a passion towards Girls of the Fly and making better pilots. There are a lot of different options in regards to getting your CFI these days, and here at Girls of the Fly, we want to make sure not only are you good, safe pilots, that you have the knowledge to back it up, because the knowledge on the ground makes it so much easier in the sky. So we've got Mark here, and I'm going to let him kind of introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Mark Jonas. I've been a CFI for over 25 years. Full-time flight instructor back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Now I fly corporate. So I've learned everything I know from you guys. Everything. Students have taught me everything I know. So your flight instructor certificate is legitimately a license to learn. When you start from scratch, your students ask questions you don't know answers to, and you look them up, and that's how you learn. And that's where I'm at. So I'm grateful for you guys. I'm grateful for my students. And I haven't flown little airplanes in a little while, and you guys are familiar with the 150 and the Cherokee 140. I've got time in both of those airplanes, but if there's something that you see that we go over today that's like, hey, that's not right, or hey, I've got a question on that, don't hesitate to ask. And if we don't know it, we'll find out, and we'll get the answer. And that's all we've got.
Yeah. We're done, so we can all leave. No, I'm just joking.
Exactly.
All right, so we're going to start with aircraft general. So that is, we've got some of you obviously flying the Piper and some of you with the Cessna. If you have the POH on you today, pull it up.
Bust that sucker out.
Bust it out. And that way, and you should always have it accessible, whether it be on your iPad or when I was a student pilot, I actually printed up and I showed Kayla a hard copy of a Thickle. I think I still have it in there, but a big copy of the book. So, go ahead.
Yeah. So also something I need to say is for your check ride, there's probably some anticipation for the check ride. Oh my God, there's so much information here. I need to know all this stuff. What the examiner is looking for is discussion. That's it. It's like you're sitting here having a cup of coffee and you're just talking about systems. They want a basic overview of knowledge. They don't need to know, every little detail. There's some stuff that you need to know and some numbers that we'll highlight, but relax, chill out. It's just discussion for the oral, and that's it. With that said, you'll have to memorize every single number here. Totally joking. Don't memorize that. Let's get into some of some of the details about the airplane. Up here we have performance specs on the Cessna 150. One of the numbers here you should memorize is gross weight. 1,600 pounds. That should be a memory item for you. Highlight that, write it down, memorize it. And that is the maximum gross weight you can have in the airplane. It's self-explanatory. Can't go over 1,650, can't go 1,700. 1,600 pounds. That's the maximum weight. That's you, your passenger, full fuel. Cannot exceed that. And you can find that out via weight and balance. That's a topic for another discussion, but 1,600 pounds is what you need. Top speed, they're on the airspeed indicator as V&E, as your yellow and red arc and stuff like that. You don't need to memorize that. These are just some performance numbers from the brand new book of the brand new Cessna 150 when it came out. Stuff you really don't need to know. It's just there for your knowledge. Empty weights. So, and I should reiterate too, we have two columns here. Yours is standard, and the numbers are pretty similar. Then there's a commuter model where you have the standard model, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a standard model. So that's why you have two columns here. They made two kind of models in this particular year where they built it. You have your empty weight, your basic empty weight of the aircraft is the weight of the airplane minus the fuel. But it includes unusable fuel, which we have when we empty the tanks, there's still some fuel that sloshes around in the lines or stuff that's stuck in the tank. They include that in the empty weight, and the oil. So all full oil. So that's what the basic empty weight is. Gross weight is you and fuel. Let's see here.
And so empty weight here, and then.
So let's see here. That's it. So
okay.
Those are numbers there. But then another number that you need to know is this here, the engine. Okay. The examiner, they will probably ask you what kind of engine does it have, and you should regurgitate this to the examiner. It is a Continental engine, 100 horsepower at 2,700 RPM, and it's an O200-alpha engine.
Yeah, so again, you want to make sure to have that memorized. Whatever engine, obviously the next one's going to be Piper on the screen, so that'll be different for those of you who fly in the Piper, but that is something that if you're like, I don't know, how much horsepower? I don't know, you need to know.
You need to know, yeah, that's a question that you just need to know. Memorize those numbers, no big deal. But all this stuff, it's kind of nice to know, but those numbers, memorize. Now we're on to the Cherokee. Now this is something cool we found out yesterday. That these two columns here, the Cherokee, we'll go into this further, is rated under two categories. Okay, for those of you know, there's a standard category or normal category, which is just it's a G loading thing. So you have a normal category airplane where basically it's just telling you I can fly this airplane around with a passenger, I can turn it, bank it, do what I need to do. And there's a utility category, which is a category of airplane which has a higher G loading, which means I can put some more stress on the wings, more stress on the horizontal stabilizer, and it's approved for minimal aerobatic maneuvers like spins and things like that. So, and this number here is under normal. This is utility, and it's lighter weight because you can imagine if I'm going to really stress a wing, more weight I put on that and in the airplane is more stress on the wings. So that's why we have two columns here for that. Are there any questions on that? I don't want to make that sound confusing for you guys.
You guys understand the empty weight versus the max gross weight? Makes sense.
And so, those are numbers, good point, that you'll need to know, like the max gross weight on these airplanes. So when you're operating this under the normal category is 1,950, utility is 2,150. And the examiner, for those of you that fly the Piper, may ask you that question. So it's important for you to know, and what the difference is. So just basically minimal aerobatic maneuvers under utility category. And then it shows, this is another important one again. ICOMing, it's an O320-Echo to Alpha, something you should memorize. And then the horsepower. So when we're using it in the normal category, it's 140 at 2450. Utility, bump it up to 2700, 150 horsepower. That's it. Easy peasy. Knowing how much oil is in it, that's great. But those are the standard numbers you should memorize. Fuel capacity. Now we're talking, this is the Piper again.
Correct.
And as we know it, it's 50.
Are we 25 aside, right?
Yeah.
In the Piper? Yep.
It's got a lot of gas. Holds quite a bit of gas.
It does.
So 25 gallons per side of fuel. We know that the oil capacity is 8 quarts. That's kind of icing on the cake if you know that information. And we talked about this yesterday, it's just a little bit. Most engines sit at an oil level where they like it. And one Cherokee 140 is one Cherokee 140. One might like to sit at 6 quarts, the other one might just like to sit at 7. If you fill up to 8, it's just going to spit out what doesn't
Spits it
want.
out. A lot of people sometimes don't understand that. They'll go, okay, we need to put for example, the Cessna at 6. I go, no, it likes 4.5 to 5. If you put it in, it's going to spit it out. So people filling it up, spitting it out, feeling like, okay, we don't want to go under 4, obviously, but you can if you look it up in the book. I think the minimum's like 2 or 3, which we don't want to do that either. But you find that happy spot and then you keep it there.
That's it. And you'll get to know that as you fly more.
Mm-hmm. Anything else on this?
No.
Nope, didn't think so. Okay, and then aircraft stuff.
So standard, this is just the standard parts of the airplane, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. The front, the power plant, makes the airplane go. You got the wings, attached to the wings, you have the ailerons, you got the flaps. Moving back, we have the fuselage of the airplane, it's the body of the airplane, and back is called the empennage. So we have the vertical stabilizer.
I'll move this. Thank
Great,
you.
thanks. Vertical stabilizer and rudder, horizontal stab, and the elevator. And attached to the elevator, we have a trim tab. So a lot of people too will get that confused. They'll look at the tail and say, "Hey, this is the rudder." No, this is the This is the rudder. The part that actually moves is the rudder. The vertical stabilizer is attached to the airplane. It doesn't move. So that's a little fin that wags back there is the rudder. And the elevator is attached to the horizontal stabilizer. So the elevator is this part, hinged back there. Makes the airplane go up and down. The rudder makes the airplane yaw left and right. And then we have the ailerons, which roll the airplane left or right.
Oops.
All attached via cables and pulleys. That's it. There's cables and pulleys in there, and all they do is move that input from either. So we'll talk about, as you guys know, the ailerons. You've got the control wheel, left, right, cables and pulleys, and then you've got the elevator. Houses get smaller, houses get bigger, up and down, cables and pulleys, and you've got your rudder, which is attached to the foot pedals. Makes the airplane go right and left. Those are the primary flight controls,
which we're going into next.
Mm-hmm. And now, yeah, exactly. Now we talk about axis of the airplane. This can get confusing. Okay, basically we're taking a model airplane. Of course, this is a jet airplane, but same type of thing, right? So the vertical axis is like I jab a stake right through the center of the airplane. Okay. Now, how we control the vertical axis, about the vertical axis of the airplane, is the rudder. Okay, which is yaw. Okay, it goes left, right. Okay, left, right, and foot pedals. That's it. That's the vertical axis. Longitudinal axis, we take a big spike and drive it right through the nose, through the tail. That's roll. Okay, control via the ailerons. Bank right, bank left. And then we've got the lateral axis. It's like we drive a stake right through the center of the airplane, paralleling the wings. Okay, now we go elevators. Okay, up, down. Primary flight controls: elevator, rudder, and ailerons. Questions? That's all the examiner's going to want to know. You know, how they control cables and pulleys. That's it. Easy peasy.
Secondary.
Next, secondary flight controls. We've got wing flaps. Wing flaps are there to help us. They increase lift, but they also increase drag. So when we come into land, we add flaps, which help us increase lift and generate drag, so we can come in at slower airspeed. So we're not doing 100 knots when we land and float all the way down the runway. Flaps are there to help us to do that. They also help us get off the ground quicker. So when we take off on a short field, we can add our flaps. It gets us at a ground effect, gets us off the ground slower than normal, and then we can accelerate and clear our obstacle and climb. Those are flaps. Flaps in both airplanes different. The 150 electric, and the Cherokee 140 mechanical. Okay, there's a mechanical linkage in the Cherokee 140, and the Cessna you got your electric operation of the flaps. Questions on flaps? And again, I'm super caffeinated, so slow down.
Any questions so far on any of that? Okay, what are the primary flight controls? Somebody say them. Don't look up here.
The primary flight aileron, rudder, elevator.
Correct.
That's it.
All right.
Easy.
Good job. You get one more piece of star bread.
We talked about one secondary flight control was the flaps. The second is the trim. Okay, and the trim in both of these airplanes operates differently. We do have a trim wheel. As the Cherokee 140's got this guy.
Yes.
I always love that thing. So you got that up there, and then you got the trim down here in the Cessna 150. The trim is there to relieve control forces on the airplane. So, and we only have one trim in this airplane, and that's in the elevator. So, as you guys have flown, you've all flown before. When you pitch the airplane in a climb, there's a little bit of weight on the tail of that airplane. If you let go, the airplane is inherently stable. It wants to return back to where it came from. So the trim helps you to relieve that pressure and keep that control force in the spot where you want it. So I'll trim it for nose up flight. I'm spinning the wheel down to relieve that pressure where I can fly it, hands off, and it stays in that same spot. That's it. Now that's a trim tab, which is located in the Cessna on the elevator of the airplane. And again, my memory fades, but it's either left or right on either side. But you can see there's a tab. There's a big hinge for the elevator, and there's a smaller tab, a smaller hinge for the trim. In the Piper, it's interesting. We have this, which is kind of cool. It's called a stabilator and not an elevator. I know, see? Kind of cool. So that where the whole force, like where Jamie and I fly a Challenger like that we have that in the Challenger, the whole elevator, the whole horizontal stab moves just like a Piper. It does the same thing. And then this is a fancy word for trim tab, an anti-servo tab. on the elevator of the Piper. And that's designed to also relieve control forces just like the Cessna. But the cool thing about this, which I read, was that I guess when they initially built it and built the stabilator, like it was so light on the controls that they had to give you some sort of feel. So you're pulling something or pushing something. So they developed this anti-servo tab to give you that feel, like there's a little heavier, because otherwise it would just be too light and for the airplane. So they add this anti-servo tab to give you that control feel and relieve control pressures. And that's done via the little spin guy on the roof of the Cherokee 140, and it's pretty cool.
And as you're learning about both airplanes, you know, one applies to you, one maybe doesn't, but they kind of both apply to everything, right? So as you learn more about the mechanics of how things work, it makes you really understand the aircraft. So you're flying one, definitely pay attention to the other, because you're like, oh, okay, it might even click a little different when you're hearing about the other airplane. All right, anything else on this one? And then I'll go back one.
So those are just a diagram showing how the rudder and aileron interconnecting springs are like, it's just cables and pulleys. You know, again, that's what the examiner is going to want to know. How is it done? They don't need you to draw it out. This is confusion, right? Like, so this is where each tab moves. Okay, so in the elevator, if you pitch up to make the airplane climb, okay, the elevator itself pivots upwards, okay? Because this horizontal stab here was just made, is like a negative wing, okay? Because you've got this heavy engine out there. This engine, if we didn't have this back here, this airplane just wants to do this all the time. So now you've got this horizontal stab back here, putting force back here when you fly fast to keep that nose up. So now what you're doing is, as you accelerate and you put a relative wind over the horizontal stab and pitch, the deflection of that elevator makes the nose pitch up. So now we've got these control forces, which we talked about. Okay, now it's feeling heavy. Well, now the trim tab comes into play. I'm pitching up, and that actually deflects the other way into the wind to relieve those control forces. So actually the elevator, for a nose up trim, elevator pitches up, and the trim tab pitches down, removes some of that control force. And vice versa, a nose down, the elevator goes down. Yeah, and you might want to take a picture of this because it does get confusing.
I'm going to shut this window. It's like the worst time. Can you guys hear okay? At least be a little bit quieter. I'm like, why do they pick today to do the...
when you guys are out in the airplane, so you don't hesitate with your flight instructor to get out there and be like, I don't understand, and then you can actually see it. You know, have your CFI get in there and say, okay, climb for me, and then the CFI will pull back and you'll see where the elevator deflects. Okay, trim, and then see where the trim tab goes, and it's okay, I'm trimming nose up, I'm trimming nose down, because once you see it, that'll just hammer it in your head like, oh yeah, I've seen that, I know what that looks like. There's some diagram that kind of looks like a funky diagram with airflow over it, but that's how that works. And the trim tabs are operated the same thing. They're mechanical, little piano hinge in the back with a push rod that moves the trim tab either up or down.
Yeah, that's a good picture. So, okay.
Questions on that? Because I probably won't have an answer.
Oh, and that's
failures.
Any kind of failures. So.
Well, flight control failures highly improbable in these airplanes because those pulleys and cables are, they're pretty rock solid. I mean, I haven't had any, and then I you hear about them every now and then, but the big failures are actually, which is interesting. You had a secondary control failure just recently.
I did. Yeah.
So that's where you're more apt to get a failure, is a secondary flight control, like flaps or trim. Trim failure in this airplane, well, use your biceps. That's it. If the trim fails or gets stuck, well, you're just going to have to force it.
And that's a good mentality. Even when certain people teach different, certain CFIs teach different than others. So you definitely want to trim the airplane, but you want to fly the airplane first and then trim the airplane to where you want it, right? You don't want to trim, like if you're climbing, you don't want to just trim first and you because that then you're chasing the trim the entire time versus.
No death grip on the yoke either. You know, I like that. There you go.
I know some of you sweat when you're flying because you're you're all smiling because you're like, you know. I actually, when I was a student pilot, I wore a glove because I think I told you about that. I got like a golfer's glove, and I'm like, I'm just gonna wear this till I get my sweat under control, and it worked. So, yeah.
Golfer's glove.
Golfer's glove.
Michael Jackson.
Yep.
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 Cool.
Next is engine. Oh, go ahead.
A flap failure.
Flap failure. Oh, yeah.
You know, flap
Yep.
failures are no big deal in this airplane either. The flaps can fail. They can fail partially. I mean, you're more apt to get a flap failure in the Cessna because it's electric. You just got an electric part out there that motor can fail, and then either the flaps get stuck at zero, they might get stuck halfway between zero and your first notch. If that happens, no big deal. These airplanes are small. If you're going into a short grass strip, start thinking, maybe I don't want to go there because now I have no flaps and I can't. I have to move faster, and that increases my landing roll and my landing distance. McClellan, it's not going to be an issue. You have lots of runway there, and it won't be a problem. Same thing in the Cherokee 140.
So if you were going into Rio Linda, which is next to McClellan, and you had a flap fail, you want to divert.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to go to the longer runway. That way you can float longer and get down safely.
Yep, good consideration.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep.
So next will be engine, but I'll ask, well, we're regrouping on that. Questions.
Secondary flight controls.
Or anything.
Anybody. Okay.
Come on, stump them.
Moving on.
Ask a good one. She's smart back there.
I don't know. My only question is, do you have a specific way that you, when you're doing like the run up, that you go through the flight controls, like to make sure to check them?
Some people will they'll do a box. Like, that's what a lot of people will do, like a box of flight controls. Like, they'll go, some people, because in the Cherokee, you won't see the elevator. But you're in the Cessna or you're in the Cherokee? So the Cessna, you should be able to see it, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually, some people will do a box, I'll pull all the way back, and make sure when I pull back, know which direction it's going, right? And you can say that to yourself as you're in the airplane. Okay, great. I pull back, which way does the elevator go? Which way does the elevator go if I pull back? Do you know? Very good. Yeah, so pull, so the elevator kicks up like this, right? Then I'll draw a box. I'll go, right. Now, we didn't talk about that. Which direction does the right aileron go? If I turn right, do you remember?
You know the answer because you put yourself on a yoke.
Yeah.
And you can and a lot of people go thumbs up.
So right goes up.
Yep.
Very good. Yep. So now you got the elevator up like this. You got your right aileron's up. Now I look over my left aileron should be which direction? Down.
And there's been cases where mechanics have wired it wrong, and people have actually died from taking off and it not being correct. So you want to make sure that when you're checking the flight controls, you know what you're checking.
Every airplane you fly, you will do that. I mean, if you're in the 150 now, when you get your 747 or whatever else, you're going to do the same exact thing. You will always check the flight controls. We check them prior to leaving the chocks and the Challenger. I check them right before takeoff again too, because that's what you do, just to make sure that everything works the way you want it to.
And you want to do it the full back yoke, and because you never know, there could be somebody in the right seat that's got something in their lap, and you can't go back all the way. So you're checking it for numerous reasons to make sure that they're working correctly. You're making sure there's nothing in the way. You're making sure that the gust lock is out, because people have taken off with a gust lock on. And
in Boston, everybody dies of freaking gust lockers.
Yeah, because you can't control it. You go to take, you're like, I'm flying down the runway about to take off, and it's time to go up, and it's not working. Well, you didn't do your pre-flight and your pre-checks properly. So eliminate all that stuff on the ground.
Yeah, so long story short, pull back, up, and I go all the way over with it up like that. I push forward like that. Now push forward. I should see the elevator go all the way down and back to neutral. And that's a good way to do your flight, if that's what you prefer. I mean, some people just do this, you know, and that's fine too, however you want to do it. But whatever works in your head is the right way to do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Have a flow.
Have a flow.
We'll go to the next, because just in case
Yeah.
we run out of time, and then I'll
Sure.
save the questions for the end. Okay. Engine.
Yeah.
Yay. This is the fun stuff. That's why you're here today on Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Again, we talked about this is from your POH. This is the Cherokee 140. Again, we're just hitting this again where it's numbers you need to know. This is something you need to regurgitate for the examiner. What type of engine does the Piper Cherokee 140 have? It has a Lycoming O-320-Echo 2 Alpha engine installed, and it's rated at 140 horsepower at 2450 RPM or 150 horsepower at 2700 RPM. And that's it. You should know that stuff. That's just stuff that you memorize before you walk into your check ride. That's the type of motor that has. Here's the Cessna 150. We talked about that. It's got a Continental engine, 100 horsepower at 2750 RPM. It's an O-200-Alpha engine. That's it. We talked about oil capacity. I mean, again, if they ask you, you know, hold 6 quarts, but not a big deal. But the engine, you should know those things. Exactly what it is. Cool. Awesome. For now, we're going to disregard this part of it. Magnetos will be in electrical, which we'll hit shortly thereafter. But this just shows a good diagram of the engine. This is a horizontally opposed engine. You know, so we all heard V6, you know, in your car. Well, the cylinders are arranged in a V model like this. These are horizontally opposed, so it's flat. When you open the cowling, yeah, exactly. You see flat. Those cylinders go like this. That's it. That's all it means. Do we have a radiator in any of these airplanes? No. How is the engine cooled? You know? Oil. That's one. What's another big one? Air. That's it. Air. Primarily, air is how we cool this. And through here, you got the cowl. Here's the prop hub, right? You have air coming across here, and these cylinders are like a radiator. So, like, if we had radiators in here, you can see them. There's little fins in there because it disperses heat. Well, that's what this is doing. It's dispersing heat. It's getting hot. You got the wind that flows through these little channels here to cool those cylinders off. So air is flowing from the air inlet through the cowling across these cylinders to cool it. That's it. And we have horizontally opposed cylinders where the cylinders are just across from each other. That's the reason why we got this diagram up.
Okay, on to the next. Oh boy.
Cool.
Oh.
Now we got here's the cylinder. Now, this engine is a four-stroke motor. Okay, so then we're talking about the strokes of the cylinder. The cylinder is in here. It's just pumping up and down.
I'll come back to the other.
There
I'll
we
come
go.
back to the last
That's a
one,
good
but
one.
I'll let you do this. Yeah.
Perfect. So this is, to me, I'm always amazed by engines. Who designed this and the timing that has to work for all this magic to happen is pretty freaking cool. Because you have these cylinders, which all they do is pump up and down, but you have an explosion that happens just at the right moment to produce power to get that prop to spin, which is pretty cool. And it all happens seamlessly. So we've got 4 strokes. So what happens is it's kind of like a human being when you think about it. It's an intake. It inhales. This inhales, this piston moves down, the intake valve, which now we have 2 valves. This is the cylinder, okay? Crankshaft, which moves that piston up and down within the cylinder. And with these valves at the top of the cylinder and 2 spark plugs on either side of the cylinder. Am I going too fast? Any questions on the parts of that? Cool. So again, first stroke, that piston comes down, the intake valve opens, and it breathes. It brings this mixture of fuel and air into this cylinder. Okay, cool. Well, now at the bottom of that stroke, that's stroke 1, that intake valve closes. So now this is sealed. There's pressure in there. Now what happens is, now there's the compression. So what's happening in any engine, whether it's a normally aspirated reciprocating engine, which this is reciprocating, just saying that things are moving around, or a jet, it's compressing the air, that air-fuel mixture. It's squeezing. So it squeezes it into the compression stroke. So now it's intake, compression, then the spark happens, lights it off, boom. And that's the power stroke, where the spark happens, pushes the cylinder back down. These valves are still closed. And now the exhaust stroke, this exhaust valve opens and pushes that burnt fuel air mixture out of that cylinder, and it moves it out into the exhaust manifold and goes out the back, the tailpipe of the airplane. So 4 strokes. It's like a breath, a squeeze, an explosion, and exhaustion. Just like we breathe. You breathe in, your body compresses it, it uses it, and then we breathe out carbon dioxide. Same thing as this. Same exact principle. So there it is.
I'm going to go back one slide.
Cool, absolutely. And we have these spark plugs. Really, you only need 1 spark plug to make this work, but in our airplane we have 2. Everything in airplanes are redundant, which means more than 1 just in case something fails. So we have 2 for efficiency. And we'll talk about the magnetos in another time during electrical, but you need electrical power for this to happen because you need a spark for the spark plug to ignite it, just like a gas grill. You need that like click, 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 and it blows up and makes this work. What else do we need?
Let's see.
2-stroke compression. Usually that's 2-stroke. We don't need. We're a 4-stroke.
Moving
So
on.
I'm talking about 4-stroke. Moving on.
Don't need this one anymore.
No. Oh. All right. Yeah. You need to memorize this and draw it. No, you don't. You don't. Okay. So in modern engines, we have fuel injection. These airplanes are not modern. They're not. But it's pretty cool because they've lasted a long time. There's a way. So we need to make a way for this to happen where we can mix the fuel in the air. And where that magic happens is the carburetor. Okay. So this is a rudimentary idea of how it works. There's fuel goes into this little float chamber, and this little float, just like a toilet. If you look in the back of the toilet, when the water goes down, it adds water. Same thing. When this little float comes down, it just adds more fuel from the fuel tanks to keep this chamber full of fuel. This little rod here is your mixture. So it's kind of cool. Well, in the Cessna, you got the little twisty or the pull, and the Piper, you got that little, knob where you pull back and forth. Mixture. It's just telling it how much fuel is going to stay in this chamber and how much fuel is going to be routed to this discharge nozzle. So we've got the fuel in here, your mixture, so that tells it how much fuel is going to be pushed out to that discharge nozzle. Here's the discharge nozzle, which is where the fuel gets ejected into this air mixture. Then we have this cool aerodynamic principle called Venturi. And you might have heard of that throughout your training. Like your wing is half a Venturi. We have Venturis in the pitot tubes. Basically, it's a way to change pressure. And when you think of anything, like think of high to low, right? Things want to go to low pressure. High pressure wants to go to low pressure. You have a balloon, it's full of air. A lot of pressure in that sucker. If you let it out, it wants to go into this big room where there's less pressure. So that's what happens. It accelerates this mixture of fuel. So the fuel is like, hey, I want to go to this low pressure area, and it creates a low pressure area right here where air coming from the air inlet, which we have in our airplanes in the 150 or the Cherokee 140, you'll have a little screen up front. I'm not sure how they look. It'll be up in the nose of the airplane, and that's where air is filtered in, brought in through this air inlet. Fuel is ejected through this discharge nozzle, and it's mixed right in here. And this is your throttle valve. That is all you're controlling when you move your throttle. This picture right here, the throttle's wide open. It's in the takeoff configuration. It's all the way open. You're allowing the most fuel and air mixture to go out into your intake manifold, which is where that is like a house. Like if you can think of it, your intake manifold is like this room, and the cylinders are like these sub rooms off here, and that's where that fuel air mixture is delivered into the cylinders. So it goes in this waiting area in the intake manifold, and then gets dispersed to each cylinder where combustion happens. So it's a little complicated, but basically all you need to know is that the carburetor is there to mix the fuel and the air together for combustion. If you tell your examiner that, great. You know, that's what you need to know. You don't need to know this information, but it's kind of cool that you do. You know, and we have this. So now this valve, if you bring the power back, it's going to start closing this, so you have less fuel-air mixture that goes into the intake, and wide open is more. The position of the carburetors are different in each airplane. We'll talk about that now, because there's certain things that can happen, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But are there any questions on the carburetor? Because I know it can be kind of a little confusing.
I'm just gonna know it's like a toilet.
That's a good.
This part.
That was a good.
Exactly.
I was like,
There you go.
It stuck with her.
However it hits home for us. Absolutely. Yep. My instructor said it's like a toilet. Yeah, cool.
Trying to set you up for success.
Yeah.
That's it.
But any other questions on the carburetor? That's all it is there to now. Fuel injection, something different. That just atomizes fuel, or it's like a spray of fuel into the cylinders. These airplanes are not like that. Questions?
Well, I guess when we use the primer, it doesn't go. Where does it go into? Not
Good.
I think we're going to get to that.
Fuel system.
Yep.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Hang on to that question. So I'm glad you brought it
Yep.
up. Perfect. Yeah.
Another piece of Starbread for you.
Yeah. So now we have this carburetor can be susceptible to ice, and we think of ice, we think cold temperatures. Well, not necessarily, because this venturi, when it accelerates the air, it also cools it. That's what happens as a byproduct of creating low pressure. And what can happen is, even on a day where it's like 68 degrees and it's fairly moist outside, you can develop carburetor ice, which clogs it. This is basically like eating too much Starbread. Well, that's what's going to happen to your arteries. Clog them up, right? So this is exactly what's happening here, and your heart won't run as efficiently. Well, that's exactly what's happening.
That's
here.
true.
So so it just ices this whole thing up, and it gets ugly. So what happens is we notice as we fly, well, you might see a slight reduction in engine RPM. Maybe it starts running a little rough. First indication, turn the carburetor heat on. We've got another diagram which we'll pull up in a second, but basically all it does is take, and it closes the valve for that air filter in the front where normally the air comes from, and routes it around the exhaust to warm it, and pushes it into this carburetor, which heats it and melts that ice. So what will happen is you might get a little engine roughness. Oh crap, I got some carb ice. Turn the carburetor heat on. Well, the condition's going to get a little bit worse, because now what you've done is when you introduce hot air into the engine, the air is less dense, so it runs a little less efficient, which you guys notice every time you do your carbine check. You get a little reduction, and that might happen for that carb ice maybe a few times, and it runs a little worse, so you might lose another 100 RPM, but then about, it might feel like a minute, but it's probably 15 seconds where it gets better, and then you can either leave the carburetor heat on if you're still in those conditions, or you can turn it off and your engine runs normally again. That's it. You're just bypassing. So for the Checkride, it's like, what does the carburetor heat do? All it does is bypass the normal air inlet, routes air around the exhaust.
I think we have a picture of it. Right,
ice.
here you go.
There it is. Super simple, right? There's your normal air intake. This valve is normally open, air goes in through, into the carburetor. Well, now we pull the carburetor heat on. What happens is air now runs through here, fresh air goes across this exhaust manifold, which is out near where the exhaust is, that little waiting area where all the exhaust gas is pushed out, because that's hot. Runs across that, goes into the carburetor, there you go, melts the ice, problem solved.
Questions on that configuration?
And yeah, the carb heat, all it is it's like a lawnmower cable. You're pulling it on, and it closes one vent, and the other vent, this is where I'm speculating, is probably always open, but it just won't go, it won't be allowed to go through here, because this valve is the other direction during normal operations. So then when it isn't, it closes it, and now it has only one way to go across the exhaust manifold. That's it.
And then
that happens every time you turn the carb heat on.
Every time you
That's
turn the
what we're
carburetor
doing.
heat, that's all you're doing is closing that valve and rerouting air. And the reason is too, so it's the location of the carburetor. So Cessnas, I mean, they beat this into you. You're out of the green arc. Turn the carburetor heat on. Turn it on. Turn it on. Turn it on. And because the carburetor, from our understanding, is low, away from the heat of the engine. The piper, you barely ever use the carb heat, ever. Like you never really use it, because my understanding from that is the carburetor is a lot closer to the engine, so it's always warm in there, so you don't need it as much. Cessna is just in a different location. It's just a design characteristic. That's where they put it. So now every time you bring the power back on the tach, we're out of the green arc. Okay, carburetor heat comes on. It's just like, that's just a Cessna thing. Questions? Carburetors.
Okay, moving on up.
Moving on. So that was it. Okay, cool.
Oil.
So you'll hear a wet sump, dry sump system, possibly, maybe not. These airplanes are simple. It's a wet sump system, which means that there's no oil reservoir. You know, a lot of places have an oil reservoir, but this has none. It just oil just sloshes around. It just sits at the bottom of the crankcase, and then when the engine starts, it uses an oil pump. When the engine starts, it starts sucking up that oil. It brings it through these filters and screens, and you've got these other filters here. So if there's, you've got a lot of metal moving. If there's shavings of metal or anything that's contaminated, it'll get caught in the screen, hopefully, and gets rerouted through here and just sprays it everywhere, just to cool and lubricate. That's what it does. And we've got these gauges in the airplane for pressure and temperature. Honestly, you can memorize these numbers if you like for your airplane. If I'm your examiner, the answer I want to hear is like, well, how do we, green, it's in the green. That's it. Green is good, red's bad, so that's all I want to know. And so now we've got oil in the airplane, which we talked about. It's in the sump, it gets sucked up through an oil pump, goes through a series of screens and filters to clean it, and then gets sprayed into where it needs to lubricate bearings and cylinders, things like that. That's it. And why do we have it? Again, because of cooling and lubrication. That's it. Certain things that can go wrong: low oil pressure, high oil temperature. What could that indicate? If I'm flying along and all of a sudden I see my oil temperature gauge start increasing and my oil pressure start decreasing, what has happened?
Low oil.
Oh yeah. Low oil. That's it. I got an oil leak somewhere. Something. What's going to happen?
Oh, their engine is going to freeze.
It's going to get quiet.
Yeah.
It's going to get quiet. Yeah. So, that's what's going to happen. So, be prepared. We talked about this too. That one of the only ways to check there's no engine temperature gauge is an oil temperature gauge. Where we live in California, flying in July, blasting off, and you're flying at VX, climbing out, and you notice the oil temperature starts increasing. As the temperature starts increasing, the oil is more viscous, more like water, and oil pressure starts to decrease. Now, it may not decrease outside of the green, but it might decrease here. It's like some things you may want to consider. What are things you want to consider on a climb out like that? What if you have a high oil temperature and your oil pressure started? Not necessarily drop, but you just kind of keep an eye on it. See, it's a little lower than you normally see it. Basically, what I'm getting at is here, you may want to reduce the angle of attack, get some more airflow over the cylinders. That's all. And maybe you plan to climb to 6,500 feet. You're like, well, maybe I need to rethink this and stop at 4,500 feet. Let the airplane cool for a bit, and then continue my climb.
Because in other airplanes, it actually has an EGT and a CHT, which shows you each cylinder on how hot they're actually getting the metal. So you can take a peek at that, and when that's starting to rise, you just lower the nose and reduce your angle of climb, and it will cool off the engine. And these aircrafts, all you got is the temperature gauges. So it's the same thing, and understanding if in the pattern or if you're taking off and practicing, let's say short field takeoff, 50-foot obstacles, VX climb on a hot day, but we're recovering at pattern altitude and just continuing to practice, no big deal. But if you were deciding to take off and go up to 6,500 feet for to Chico for the day, and you're like, I'm just going to climb VX the whole way, you might be overheating your engine, and if you don't know the basics of how it works, you're not going to be able to cool it off. So you definitely want to think about that.
That's it. It's your only choice is air.
Yep, air.
That's it. There's your web sump system, oil. Then there's obviously the oil filler cap and dipstick. You know what that's about. I'm sure you've all checked the oil before, see where the oil's at, where it's happy, and what you need to do for that.
And a little bit of oil that drips on the engine, it looks like a lot sometimes.
It's like a head. Yep.
Okay, just some failures and malfunctions. I think we went over,
Pressure.
except for
fuel flow and fuel pressure. We'll talk about that in the fuel system. Engine failure. We talked about that. You know, you go through your items for engine failure. You guys have a flow for engine failure followed by a checklist.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Fuel starvation, we'll talk about that. Loss of cylinder, we talked about that yesterday. Jamie mentioned yesterday compression in cylinders. All it is pressure, and there are certain standards to where these engines need to be met, and they go through rigorous inspections where a technician will hook it up and see how much squeeze, that's all it is, how much squeeze each cylinder has. And if it's weak on the squeeze, well, that means that something's wrong with the cylinder. Mm-hmm. So there's certain rings, there's certain parts of the cylinder that need to be replaced, even engine replacements because of low compression. And if you have low compression, that means you have low power. And then you can also lose a cylinder completely, which you'll know when you completely lose a cylinder because the engine runs rough and you lose power. Yep, and it's different from carb ice is a little gradual. You'll just notice it, and the engine runs a little rougher, but you just see the RPM drop for no reason, and it's not a drastic drop. It's just like, what is happening? Why? And that's like carburetor heat. Turn it on. But you lose a cylinder, the airplane's shaking. Yep.
Unless you're in a more powerful airplane. I lost a cylinder in the Bonanza once, and I didn't feel that big of a difference, but when they did my compression checks, they said, oh, one of your cylinders is down to almost zero. I go, are you kidding me? So that's why we will know in the smaller aircraft if you lose a cylinder. But either way, during every 100-hour inspections, we check it, we make sure they're within range. If they're not, they let us know, and then we replace a cylinder.
Yep.
Anything else?
Carb ice we talk about, magneto failure we will talk about, and electrical.
Cool. I think that's almost coming up.
Questions on engine, anything.
And then
we're doing great on time. The
key points for what kind of engine you have, what your engine does, the basics of a cylinder, and your horsepower. Just know all that stuff.
We have 4 cylinders.
Correct.
And know that.
But only 2 spark plugs?
Per cylinder.
Oh.
So you have 2 spark plugs in each cylinder.
We'll be getting into that with
you'll
electrical.
Have 8. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
There for efficiency and redundancy, just in case you lose one.
Can you see the spark plugs from when you're looking into the engine?
You can see where you can't see the actual plug itself, but you can see where they are. Depending, I'm not sure if you look you'll see a wire and you'll see
usually,
the top,
I'll have to look inside Art when we fly it.
So that thing that's on top,
yes.
One on each though.
Yeah, but underneath.
One on top and one on bottom.
You can't see those.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was a diagram there that showed top, and it showed top, and you think, oh, I only got 4 spark plugs. No, because if you crawl underneath and look, you'll see 4 more wires, one going each cylinder. So at each cylinder, there's 2 spark plugs. Good question.
Anything else on engine?
Anything else? You got?
Nope.
We're doing well on time.
We are doing good on time. Yeah, perfect. On to the fuel. Yay.
Cool.
Important thing we need for flying.
Yeah. Yeah. What makes an airplane fly? It's not fuel, it's money, right? Money makes airplanes fly.
So true that.
So, anyways, this is the Cessna 150 fuel tank. Very simple. It is a gravitational system. So we've got fuel tanks in the wings. High wing, gravity just feeds it down through this fuel selector valve, which we have here. It's either on or it's off. It's on, airplane runs. It's off, airplane gets quiet. Goes through the fuel strainer, into the carburetor, into the cylinder. Now this is where you brought up the primer, right? The primer, all it does is directly inject fuel into that waiting room of intake manifold. So it's taking raw fuel, not mixed with air, and just squeezes it into that room so it gets sucked into those cylinders for combustion. So that's why, like, you can flood the hell out of this airplane if you just prime the hell out of it, so you're just pouring gas into it. And when it lights off, and everyone around you is going to know it because it might backfire. So, which happens, but that's all that primer does. And then we need to know, as students in the Cessna, I'm thinking the Skyhawks or 172s. I can't remember in the 150 or 152s, but you got this little syringe. It's the same thing in the Piper. And that's what that thing is. It's a syringe, just like a syringe for a needle. When I take the primer, I apply a little back pressure on it because it's got this little bump where it locks. Because it's important that that thing is locked when you're flying.
The heat was on.
So. Give him star bread.
The heat was on. I was like, I was getting hot.
So when I use the primer, I apply a little back pressure, and it shouldn't pull out. But as I apply back pressure, I start twisting it. And you'll feel it catch. And that's where this little, like, there's like a little ring, and behind that ring, there's this metal tab, and as it finds its notch, there's like a little channel where that tab comes out, and now you can actually pull it out. And what you don't want to do is pull out, push, pull, push. You find that tab where it catches, pull it out, let the bulb fill, and then you push it in. And do 3 strokes of primer maybe, and usually the Cessnas, it's quite a lot of fuel. In the Piper, it's very little fuel. So
I think we do two or three in the Piper for flight of the morning, and then what do you guys do in the Cessna? 3. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hot. You don't need any. It's already warm. But that's why it's there. It's just there to help. It's there to assist in starts, especially on a cold start. And so we have that primer. But it's important that the primer's locked because I've heard this, and I can dig it up and find it. But if it pops out, it can cause engine roughness or possibly engine failure. I've heard. I don't know. It's never happened. But I always make sure it's locked. And it's one of those things on a flow check that you do before you take off anyway. So when I'm done priming it, I find that little metal tab where it lines the channel. I push it in, I twist it, and then I pull. And I pull to make sure it's locked. So pull, nope, it's not coming out. Great. Primer's interlocked, done. Off we go. So that's that. Questions on the primer or fuel system? Into the Piper. Cool. Piper. It's a little more complicated, but not very complicated. So now we got these wing tanks that are low, and it's pushing fuel uphill. So we don't have gravity to help us. So you need fuel pumps. You need an engine-driven fuel pump and an electric fuel pump. The electric fuel pump is there for starts. You can hear it, like when you turn it on, it makes that funny noise. All it's doing is pushing the fuel to pressurize the fuel system until the engine-driven pump comes on. When that comes on, you can shut the fuel pump off, check your fuel pressure to make sure that you have pressure. Because you don't have a fuel pressure gauge in the Cessna, right? Just in the Piper.
No, yeah, you guys don't have it in the Cessna.
It's important in the Piper because it's pushing fuel uphill. You lose fuel pressure, it's going to get quiet. So that's why you have that gauge there. So you got the right tank and the left tank. And again, for numbers, know how much fuel your airplane holds. That's it for the fuel system as far as raw numbers go.
Piper, you switch fuel every 30 minutes because.
There we go, because it's running off one tank or the other. Cessna.
Both. You do have to remember, and people have ran out of fuel in Pipers before. Student pilots locally, not with our flight school, but because they were low and they forgot or whatever, and their engine was going off, and they didn't even switch it back and put the fuel pump on. They just emergency landing, so it's important. A lot of times you have enough fuel on one side, but even if you do, you want to make sure the plane's balanced and switch that fuel tank.
Yep, very important. And we go to the fuel quantity gauges. Don't trust those things.
Yeah, no.
I'm old, but these airplanes are older than me. So they're don't trust them. You look in the fuel tanks before you go, make sure they're squared away, and the fuel gauges, they're kind of like, okay, well, I've got full fuel or I've got no fuel. Anything in between is a question mark.
Yeah.
So again, we're going through the tanks here. It goes through the fuel sucker valve, which Amy mentioned, left to right. Goes through a fuel strainer, which is just a little filter. Primer's attached to that, which is the fuel strainer is also a low point in the fuel, where that's where when you pull the primer, we have a good diagram of that, which is easy. It just draws the fuel out of that, fill that little cylinder syringe with fuel, push it in. But basically, this pump is suction. Okay, so you turn it on and it sucks. So it sucks fuel to pressurize these lines. And you have an engine-driven pump. Once the electric fuel pump, or once the engine's running, you can turn the electric fuel pump off. In the Piper, we like redundancy in airplanes on takeoffs and landings. We turn on the electric pump just in case, for whatever reason, the engine-driven pump dies. The electric pump kicks in and continues to give us fuel, and that delivers all that fuel to the mix with the air and the carburetor. And then we have that fuel pressure gauge to tell us which you should scan every now and then to make sure that you got fuel pressure. And where does fuel pressure need to be? The right answer, in the green. That's right. Questions about fuel. It's important.
I was gonna mention. Oh, I guess it's go for it.
So with the gravity-fed fuel system, like in the Cessna, sometimes one wing is like all the way full, and then like the other wing has like 10 gallons.
Okay.
So because of gravity, does it like even itself out throughout?
This is on the gauge, or
when you measure.
Or when you measure.
Like if you're measuring, like there's like one gets like really full, and the other one is like not so much.
Absolutely. The
So
gravity
then
and how it's using, and those, and this is a guess. Jamie, you can chime in. Like, is that
level?
You're out there doing steep turns, steep, and it's just siphoning off one side, where the other one, the airplanes are older. And there's a little float in each one of them that determines what gets more fuel where.
There's a float
And,
in there.
and from what I understand, that's the way it works, but I'm not positive. It's one of the POH and these things are old, and I don't want to tell you false information, but I'm really not sure. But I know that gravity will take over, and if you're out there doing left turns, you're going to lose more fuel on the left side because gravity's just pulling it down in the motor. That's the way it usually works.
Yeah.
Okay.
In my experience. Anyway.
Really? Okay.
How far off have you seen it? Just out of curiosity.
Like a couple, like a gallon.
Yeah,
and
that's normal. Now, if it's way off, then there could be some kind of weird cloggage inside. But
I think it's just when they're topping it off, like they don't want to overfill it.
oh, that could be too. If they put fuel in it, then
Me too.
But I'm just saying, like, does it will it eventually even itself out, or is it?
probably not
I don't think
perfect.
so.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Even in the Challenger that we fly,
You gotta
we have to
fuel.
level off the fuel all the time, top it off, and then it's like, oh man, there's more on the right than the left.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything
Okay.
else?
Let's see. Primer.
Primer. This is simple, very, very simple. Kind of a cool diagram though of the Cessna fuel system. You got the two tanks, and then we want to talk about too, which we didn't. I don't know if it's in another diagram, but you've got a vent. Okay. In the fuel system, it's important that once we start using fuel, that fuel needs to be replaced with air, because if it's not, it becomes a vacuum, and these will compress. These tanks will compress upon each other, which we replace that with this air that gets sucked through here. There's vents for either replacing the fuel with air or expansion. So say somebody goes out there and fills the 150 up with fuel and decides, I'm not going to fly today. Well, now it's 105 degrees outside, and that fuel expands. And what happens is you don't want to blow these things up. So what happens is you'll start seeing fuel run out that vent. Completely normal.
And on the Cessna, I think there's just a one on the left,
And then you got the
and then
cap.
on the right, there's a venting cap.
Yep.
So that's how.
That's it. And the Piper, I don't know where the fuel vents are, It's also vented just like this, but in the POH it might show it might not, but it is vented as well.
Have to look it up.
Yeah. Those things. And now we're beating this fuel system into the ground.
We are.
With a gravity system and a fuel pump system. This is just another diagram to show you how that works.
I think we got
gravity diffuses gravity into the strainer, into the carburetor, and then the pump system actually uses an engine-driven pump with an electric pump.
So Cessna Viper. Questions?
Questions on the fuel system?
Are those the only two types of fuel systems?
As far as I know, I mean, like that's it. I mean, in most airplanes, it's all we got. Like in high wing Cessnas, I don't know about modern. I don't know what your 182 if that had a fuel pump. Do you remember?
I did.
Yeah. So that might be there for redundancy, but that's it. I mean, even in jet airplanes, it's an electric pump. We also have another series of pumps that don't move in the fuel system because the fuel tanks are so much bigger. But same stuff.
Either gravity or pump.
That's it. Yep. More questions on fuel. Anybody?
So the pre-ignition.
And that we didn't talk about the engine. So we got detonation and pre-ignition. We've been going through this round and round.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Is now the appropriate time
you
to
can
talk
talk
about it?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good because you will need to know that because that's something that could come up on your check ride.
Yeah, and this is, even to me, it's a confusing topic, something I haven't talked about much at all, because and for whatever reason it's been brought up a lot. As we understand it, a detonation is an uncontrolled explosion. You know, remember we had all this timing that happens, all this magic happens. Intake opens, compression, and explosion, and then exhaust. Well, at all times, the right spot, detonation, is where it's like it's happening uncontrolled. And pre-ignition happens at the complete wrong time. Maybe the explosion happens at the stroke where it's up or not up or down, where the stroke is down. And you might have different reasons why you get pre-ignition. There might be carbon deposits inside the cylinder that causes hot spots. Because generally you're supposed to have that cylinder be the same temperature throughout the whole cylinder. Well, sometimes you get carbon in there, which creates a hot spot, and you get heat. Anytime you get heat mixed in with the fuel air mixture, you could have combustion happen at any particular stroke. So that's where pre-ignition can happen. It can happen at the wrong time. Is that clear as mud?
So an example of detonation, just to make sure and correct me if I'm wrong, is, for example, if you lean out the mixture when you're taxiing, at least you should be doing that, and you go to take off and you give it full power and your mixture is still lean. The plane could start to choke and cough. That would be an example of detonation, correct? Is that okay? Just to get that in your head.
And then pre-ignition, is that like, what if I prime too much?
No, it wouldn't have anything to do with prime. No. It would have to be with when you're flying and the cylinder's doing an explosion at the...
So detonation, now I'm just going off the book here, can lead to pre-ignition. And so detonation can often lead to another problem known as pre-ignition. As the name implies, pre-ignition occurs when the fuel air mixture is ignited in advance of the normal time to ignition. So we know that all that timing has to happen. Well, basically it's telling you that that explosion is happening at the wrong time, which that will jack up everything, which causes a reduction in power. So pre-ignition is just that. It's ignition at the wrong stroke. That's it. So
does it say what you can?
Detonation occurs when fuel in the cylinders explodes instead of burning smoothly. It's tough to describe, and it can be tough to understand. It's all you need to know is that pre-ignition happens at the wrong time. Detonation happens as an explosion versus a smooth burning, and both of those lead to loss of engine power, which that's your catch-all. And again, it's kind of different sounding than, like, if you lean it too much, you're gonna hear detonation, because sometimes we talk about which we'll talk about in the mag section, which happens a lot in a lot of training airplanes. You get carbon deposits on spark plugs, and that spark plug another piece of magic in a spark plug, all spark plugs are different, and spark plugs rely on a gap. If you look at a spark plug, which we had one, you're going to see where the spark plug screws into the cylinder. There's a little like notch, and then above that notch is a hook, and between that notch and the hook is a spark. That's it. And some gaps are long and some are short. It just depends on what is required for what engine, and that's a mechanic question, not a mark question. So like you can ask your mechanic, that type. And there's actually a little measurement that some mechanics have. There's a little thing they stick in between to make sure the notch, because some of them get bent, is the right gap. Well, between that gap and that you're constantly causing a spark, just like your gas grill, you're going to see like crud, which is carbon, the byproduct of the burn, that gets stuck on that spark plug, and that screws up that spark. So sometimes you kind of lose the efficiency on the spark plug where you're checking your mags, and it's not the mag that's bad, it's actually the spark plug.
Which you guys have encountered in that Cessna, at least you have, where you've had to clean off the spark plugs by doing a certain procedure.
Yeah, and one of those ways is you're just trying to cook it. So you're just trying to get it hot, and that's where you can get detonation. We can see we start leaning it, and all of a sudden you get pop, bang, and that's detonation versus another indication of like carbides where like I'm seeing a little reduction in power. It's not like that in detonation. You'll know it's like it's weird, but it just doesn't. It can shake or pop or bang, but that's that. Anything else?
Good question, Isabel? Kayla? No. So yeah, we're going over. And a lot. And I'm glad. This is not. Flying airplanes is fun. Some of the studying is fun. This is more of the deeper, but it's stuff you need to know, and it's going to make you look really good to know the basics of. But.
And it's one of those things for your check ride. Like I know it's, be excited about the oral. Because you're just there talking about airplanes with this person. Yeah, that's it. Like that's what it's about. They're not like you're just there. This is deep. We're getting deep here. They're looking for a basic understanding of what's happening. So you're just having this nice conversation.
But you got to know the basic. You need to know the basics. All right.
Cool.
On to electrical.
On to electrical.
Okay.
Anybody need a break?
Anybody need take a 5 minute break. Take a 5 minute break. Bathrooms are in the back to the right. Everybody take turns. You take a sip of your coffee, and would you?
I'm going first.
This is good. This is good.
Actually, the timing is great.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
The flash was still over.
Yeah. How are you doing? Are you able to hear? Here, let me turn you up over here.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. I guess I never had you muted. How are you doing following along with your course system? Are you following along okay?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. I have a quick question. I don't have my KOH handy, but I have a 140.
Cool.
I think I always turn the auxiliary fuel pump off at 1,000 AGL 1,200. Is that about right? Is that what?
Yes. So
right?
that's what the checklist says. It says to turn it off at 1,000 feet. So you do exactly what the checklist says. Yes.
I know. I'm just going from memory here.
Yep. No, that is correct. You do turn it off at 1,000 feet.
Yeah, you don't want to wear that baby out, right?
Well, you don't. But if you wear it out, you get another one. It just costs money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know the old joke, when you're renting an airplane and something goes wrong, you think, oh my God, where should I land? But when you own the plane, you say, oh my God, how much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
That's not true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Good summary, good review. For
Good.
me.
Good. We're not done yet.
Oh, I know. Good.
And let us know if you have questions, because I guess we don't have you muted, so you can just pop in anytime if you've got questions.
No, yeah, so far it's been good. Great documentation. I've never flown a Cessna, so it's kind of fun to see the differences. So.
It is. It is fun to see the differences. You're flying today, right?
No.
Why?
Because I was supposed to fly solo, the 50 to 70, but I need to do the stage check first.
Well, maybe we could do that. Oh, you're not prepared mentally. Okay.
I have my now watch. It's ready.
Well, let's talk after class.
Yeah.
I'm going to run to the bathroom.
Yeah, go for it.
Then,
Go after you.
okay.
Whoever, I'll go last.
Aren't those good? Mm-hmm.
It's not red.
All right. It's all you.
Restroom, anybody?
No. Have at it. Oh, that's the last time I went out. It was like terrible. Like there was so many. I don't know. Like I missed the tower. Like
I missed the tower
I wanted
too.
to change.
Busy there.
We had someone who he came in and he was like so close. He just came in like on just like straight on downwind and just like was like super high. Wasn't that pattern?
How you doing?
And then it was like
the fuel
just
system,
like
we need to turn on the fuel pump. It's
Yes.
sucking some fuel.
Correct, and it puts it into, like, for example, when you start when we start the engine, it helps that fuel because the low wing, because it's not the gravity fed. The gravity fed is coming from the Cessna down, so we have nothing to push it up into the engine. So putting the fuel pump on kind of just gets it kick-started through the lines. We start the engine, she's good. Now the engine fuel pump that's inside the engine kicks on. Turn
When
the
you start the engine.
correct, yeah. So then we turn that puppy off. Don't need it the entire flight. Then when we come into land, we turn it on again. Do you know why we do that?
Just in case the engine one fails.
Well, and we do it for a go around more than anything. That's because if your engine driven fuel pump fails on a go around, you want something to help kick that fuel back into the lines. So it's redundancy.
Okay.
Yep. So
And then where does the fuel go?
into the engine. Okay, so it goes into the carburetor. So the carburetor is what holds the fuel, and then they call it the manifold, and then that goes into the engine.
Okay.
The holding tank for that.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
The blend? Oh,
It's like a real, like you know, it's like the real.
Did you get some star bread? Did you want some star bread? Okay, I know. I was like, no. I've been working too hard. How are you, Ashna?
Good.
Good? Is this good stuff? We're going to have you come in here next. Mark, just to confirm, Kayla was asking me, and I want to make sure I gave her correct information. On the Piper, we've got the fuel pump that we turn on to put fuel in the lines to get the engine started. Once the engine started, the engine-driven fuel pump kicks on. We turn off the electric fuel pump, and she was asking where that fuel goes. It goes into the carburetor, the manifold, and then into the engine, or does it go direct from the fuel pump? Does it bypass?
Actually, the fuel pump again, it sucks, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was.
It's sucking. There should be. If you go back, can you go back to that one slide?
Let's go back.
To the fuel system.
Uh,
Or even there.
I think we do
so
it. Okay.
This is from the POH, right?
Yeah.
So what's happening is this fuel pump, the electric fuel pump. So the engine's not running. You're on the fuel pump. You hear that funky
Okay.
noise.
There it is.
And
Yep.
you should see fuel pressure. There's now fuel pressure because you have the pump on.
Mm-hmm.
It's drawing fuel pressure out of these lines, and that draws that fuel into that. Remember that toilet? That little thing there
into
where it
the
floats
carburetor.
into the carburetor, which spurts it out into the air mixture, and that's how that works. Yep, that's it. And then, what do you when the engine runs and you turn off? When you turn off the electric fuel pump, where should your eyes be? Like you turn off that pump. What are you looking for?
Fuel pressure?
Yes.
Very good.
Because you want to make sure the engine pump is working.
Yep.
Because if you lost pressure,
That's it. Because all of a sudden, if it goes to zero, what have you lost? You lost your engine-driven pump. So you know that's not working.
okay. Man, I've never seen a blower blow that that long of my life out there.
Yeah, he's out there just.
I'm like, really sorry, guys.
So for the key points that we should like have in our brain for the fuel system, you know, like what type of fuel system you have, how much fuel you can carry, what type.
Yes.
And then is that mostly it? And then maybe like the flow of how it goes through.
Yeah, and have that picture in your head of a diagram of how it works. You know, in the Cessna, you've got the two tanks, gravity fed in through the fuel selector, in through the strainer, and then gets routed to the carburetor.
Okay.
That's it. And you know that the same thing with the primer. No, all you need to know with the primer is that it directly injects raw fuel into that intake. That's it. Yep.
And then for the engine, I don't know, we can touch on this at the end, but I want to make sure they have the key points for the engine.
Sure.
We'll test, don't let me forget to test them on
Fuel
that.
system, like, I don't know if we have it up there because we didn't go through it. Possible failures in the Piper. You can have an engine-driven pump failure and an electric pump
I'm
failure.
just going to see if... seriously. So annoyed.
First thing you should do, turn the electric pump on. That backs it up, and there you go. And now you're safe, and you go land and get it fixed. And the Cessna, gravity. That's all you got. If something, and there's those strainers are there to collect crud. You know, like there's crud in fuel, which that's another thing we need to talk about. Was we mentioned that, like, what do we do on a pre-flight with the fuel system? Something, right? What are the sumps? Do you know what they are?
What they are?
Yeah.
They're the lowest point
Very good.
valve to get the water out.
Yep. And you'll see it. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen water in fuel. Sometimes it looks like jelly. It's like clear, like you'll see a little like clear bubble, and it's heavier than the fuel, so it'll go to the bottom of that little collector. You know, and they'll say, oh yeah, well if you see that, you know, keep sumping until water's out of it. Yeah, no. I would sump it again, and if there's still water in it, talk to your CFI. Because and they're saying for sometimes when airplanes sit for a long period of time, which these airplanes don't. I mean, they're constantly getting fuel, so that system's just getting worked. And you shouldn't see any water in it. That's what water looks like. So sometimes you'll see sediment in it too. So that can happen where if you get sediment in the lines and it clogs it, well, there goes your fuel. That's a possibility.
All right, let's move it on. Electrical. Let me go back one. Okay, electrical.
These are old discussions, and honestly, the way this works is not the way my mind works, because I'm used to amps and volts in a different format. This is for the Piper Cherokee, and it's telling you that it has a 12-volt alternator, which my mind, alternators and volts don't drive. It's more amps and alts, but that's okay. But this is what you need to know for your Checkride.
So have these numbers memorized.
12-volt alternator. That's what you need to know.
See, she's got hers printed out. Look at that.
Excellent.
That.
Yep. And in addition to the alternator, you've got is 25 ampere hour battery, which we looked at yesterday. Generally, a 25 amp battery is going to equate to a 12-volt battery. So 25 amp battery, voltage regulator, master switch relay. But those are all icing on the cake. But basically, those are the numbers you need to know: 12-volt alternator, 25 amp hour battery. In an electrical system, in both of these airplanes, the battery is there to start the airplane. That's it. And it's there for a backup, because the alternator provides all the power for electrical components besides the spark plugs, which are powered by magnetos. But the alternator is there to run everything. So once that battery starts the motor, the alternator says, hey, the battery goes, hey, I need some help. And so the alternator goes back and powers the battery to recharge that with juice. But then the alternator is taking over and powering everything in the airplane. Very simple.
Does everybody know any questions on that? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the Piper. The next one will be the Cessna.
Yep.
And now we have here a 14-volt direct current system powered by engine-driven alternator. So it's a 14-volt alternator in the Cessna, 12-volt battery. Doesn't give ampere hour batteries, and then the battery in the Cessna is just a 12-volt battery. That's that, and then we have gauges to tell what's going on. on the left side, you have the electrical gauge in the Cessna. On the right side, you have the Piper. The ammeter in the Cessna is directly related to the battery. That's the way I think about it. Generally speaking, you're flying along for an hour, this is the way you should see it. 0. It means that the alternator is providing power, the battery is sitting there doing nothing, and it's happy. If you start seeing this deflect into the negative, that means the battery's like, hey, I'm doing all the work here, alternator took a nap. So now you're drawing off the battery and saying, I've got a limited amount of time until I can't provide any more power anymore. So this is telling you that you're drawing off the battery. If it goes into the negative, when you start the Cessna, the battery starts it, alternator runs, engine's running, you're going to see this in the positive, which means that the alternator is saying, hey, battery's a little weak, I'm helping it out by recharging it. And then you'll start seeing that needle move back towards 0, where everything's stable. That's the Cessna. Questions on an ammeter gauge? Nope. Piper. This is telling you it's telling you how much draw the alternator it has, like how much is being used. So at 0 is nothing is being used. 20 is whatever is being used is whatever you have on. Now you start turning radios, lights, everything on the airplane that's electrical. This is going to keep going up and up and up and up, right? Because it's telling you, hey, I'm using more and more and more and more power. This is telling you exactly what the alternator is doing. If you're flying along and that shows 0,
what happened? What happens?
Your alternator.
Easy.
That's easy.
Lost your alternator. In the Cessna, if you lost your alternator, you'll see that needle go into the negative. That tells you you lost your alternator. Just 2 different gauges tell you 2 different things. That's it. You have a split switch for your alternator and your battery. Technically, you can just flip the right side up to start the airplane, but then you're not charging the battery because the alternator is not on. As soon as you flip the switch up, that alternator now kicks on, you've connected that circuit, and so now the alternator is running the show and powering everything in the airplane, including recharging the battery. And the alternator switch is there just in case an alternator can wig out and can just provide too much power, spaz out, and throw out tons of power. And there may be a checklist item in there that says, hey, you're getting an over voltage. Maybe you're losing circuit breakers or fuses, and it'll tell you to flip that switch off in flight because the alternator is just providing too much power, so it has to turn it off. That's the reason why it's split. Questions on that? This diagram is ugly. And right? Memorize it. Joking. Yeah. So the reason why we have this up here is there's some primary components showing you the battery, showing you the magnetos, showing you the starter, and the alternator. But why I wanted to show you this was these buses, which generally we don't use that term in small airplanes. In bigger airplanes, you will. You need to know what's on each bus. But a bus is an electrical word for manifold. It's a meeting place. Like the alternator is putting out all this power, and it's like, where do we put the power? Well, it goes into a bus, and the bus distributes it into where it needs to go. So all this power is going into the avionics bus, and then here's a breaker for the radio 2, radio 3, radio 4, which we don't have, nav, all that kind of stuff. Primary bus, pitot heat, fuel quantity indicators, blah blah blah. It's a distribution center where it distributes.
The bus is dropping off the children.
Very good.
I know.
Very, very good. That's a good way to look at it. Never heard that.
Me neither. I just thought of it.
That's exactly right. It drops off the kids at
their schools.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it does.
Yeah.
So that's why we have that there, just to show you.
This is the bad kid school, and this is the good kid school.
There we go.
Are all fuses, like the bus?
Fuses are breakers. So the bus is not the breaker itself. It's actually so the alternator is think of it's like the aorta, right? It's putting all that blood into some place, and then the bus is where it gets distributed through various components, and each of those components may have a fuse or a breaker attached to it, because now we want to make sure that what's a bad byproduct of electricity. So you've got a fuse there, so it goes out from the bus into, say, the radio. Well, what happens if the alternator's given that radio a little more juice than it can handle? The fuse is there, and it's set at a certain temperature to where it's like, because that's a byproduct of electricity, right? It's temperature. And that's really bad for us in airplanes. Things get hot, things catch fire. So it's saying, hey, you're putting out more than I can handle, I'm out. And then all of a sudden, boop, that breaker pops out, and it stays out, and it disconnects that circuit. So now you prevent a fire from an overheating condition. That's why it's there. So the bus is there where it takes all that power and distributes it. Understood? That's the reason why we have that up there. This is for an electrician, not for
Okay, let's.
pilot.
Circuit.
Mags.
We want to talk about circuit breakers and fuses, or
yeah.
touch on it?
Yeah, we talked about circuit breakers and fuses, just why we have them there for overheating conditions or something's wrong, where it's getting overpowered, don't want to cause a fire, so it pops a breaker. If you see a pop breaker, should we reset it? Because some you can reset, and then others you can't. Basically, long story short, I wouldn't. Just leave it alone. Just know that if you're flying and you see a circuit breaker pop, you've lost that piece of equipment. And depending on if it's like a nav light, well, okay, I lost my nav light, but it's still a conversation you should have with maintenance. You know why that popped. You know, if you lost your radio, maybe a little bigger of a deal because now you got to switch either to radio 2 or however it works. But just know I wouldn't reset it. Leave it out. Talk to maintenance, and they can take care of it.
Why would you not want to reset a circuit breaker? What could happen?
It could start a fire.
Yes,
100%.
exactly.
Yep.
It popped for a reason.
Exactly.
And we don't know why.
Okay.
Mags. I think mags are cool because they're old, super old. Like you get like World War II stuff, mags. I mean, they're old and they just have been that way forever because they work. And so you got 2 mags for redundancy. Mags are self-contained units of power. Once the engine turns, so are the mags, and they're providing power to the spark plugs. So if you lose your alternator, do you lose your engine? No, because your mags are there to provide power to the spark plugs to keep them firing. So that's kind of cool. You know, if you lose your alternator, yeah, I've lost my radio, but I'm still gonna fly. I still land where I need to go. So it's actually pretty cool. They're cross-wired, so you know, right magneto might power the top side, and the left magneto powers the bottom side. So it's basically saying that each spark plug in the cylinders. So like basically, you don't want the right magneto powering both of these spark plugs in cylinder 3, because if you lose this magneto, there goes your spark in cylinder 3. So you got like here, maybe like top side is powered by the right magneto, left magneto powers the bottom side. So if you lose one mag, that's why when you're doing your run up, you're on both, right? You start both, on both mags are working, go to left or right, you're turning off one magneto. Now you just lost one spark plug in the cylinder. You still have one going, but you've just lost efficiency, so that's why you see a reduction in power by whatever, 100 RPM or so. Those are magnetos. And we talked about things that can happen, possible failures a lot of times. Oh, there we go. Our failures in our electrical system. Before we move into failures, questions on the electrical system.
Magneto questions?
Are they magnets?
That's a good question for a mechanic.
I think they are.
You know, I mean,
I think they
do
are.
you know a magneto as far as C5s?
I believe it is wrapped in a coil. Like
It is.
It's like an impulse coupler.
There's an impulse coupling in there.
Yeah.
So I believe it's like a mini alternator. That's what I believe. But then again, that's a question.
Like a generator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I believe, and I'm not positive. And we noticed that like a lot of times we'll say, oh, it's a bad mag. It's not a bad mag. It's a fouled spark plug. There's carbon deposits on this. You lost the spark plug. We're trying to cook it off, and that's why sometimes when you get the engine hot, you cook that carbon off, and it runs normally again. Because mags, it's rare they go bad. They can, but they work. I mean, they've been around for damn near 100 years. Electrical issues, lower weak battery. I think we've all been there. And this is just airplanes, cars too. You put on your car and just try to turn it over and you hear click, 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 click. Battery's dead, battery's weak, slow turn, prop might turn, slow, start. Talk to your CFI, talk to maintenance. Dead battery, we know, if you just turn it, nothing happens. Starter failure, again, might be a click, click, click. You've got a lot of juice in the battery and it's powering that starter, because all that starter is, there's a little, like, when they talk about a solenoid, there's a starter in there and it pops out this little sprocket and connects to the prop hub and turns the whole thing out. Well, your starter could have a solenoid that's blocked or broken. Alternator failure, we talked about that. Over voltage, we talked about that. Pop circuit breakers, we talked about that. Ammeter, load meter, we talked about that. Electrical burning, smell or smoke, that's important. Electrical fire, you'll never forget it once you smell it. And it's just burning wires. And what's the first thing you can do to immediately stop an electrical fire in your airplane? Stop the whole thing. You're flying along and all of a sudden you smell it. You don't know the breakers are all in. What's going on? What can you do to stop electricity in your airplane? Like a catch-all.
Turn the master off.
Exactly. 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
Turn that master switch off. You're not going to lose the engine. You lose everything else, but you won't lose your engine, and you're going to save your life. So there you go. That's it. Stop the heat.
So if we have a fire in the cockpit, it's my understanding it's just going to be electrical fire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The engine fire is going to be outside.
Mm-hmm.
It probably won't come in,
Probably not.
right? But
You
if we
have
have,
a firewall to stop that.
right, and so if we have fire in the cockpit, it's electrical.
Correct, and you'll
So
smell it.
we're spraying, turning it off.
Or you're smoking cigarettes in the cockpit.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. There's nothing else.
Okay.
All you got. Yep. Wiring short or electrical fire. There we go.
Yep. Okay.
Questions?
Questions on that?
Prop. These are all pretty simple, and we'll go through this really quickly.
Quick, because no, I mean
Sorry.
we're fine.
Yeah,
We're good on
we got
time,
plenty
but
of
I want to get to
Yeah,
we're
the
good.
big one's going to be instruments, and we'll get into that.
We're good. We're almost there.
But the prop is we have a fixed pitch prop, which means this propeller is bolted onto the prop hub. There's these bolts on there, it's stuck on there, and all it does is spin. Some airplanes you can adjust the blade angle of the prop, so which means that this prop ours is just out there spinning, and whatever we do, whether we climb, descend, cruise, that prop is fixed, and it's taking the same bite out of the air regardless of where the nose of the airplane is. That's a fixed pitch prop. There are no controls for it in the cockpit. That is it. You've got your RPMs, done, finished. Constant speed prop, which they talk about, is a governed prop where the propeller adjusts the blade angle according to what RPM you set. And that's the confusing part to us. So we see RPM, that's our power. We see power. Well, when you have a fixed constant speed prop, that's not our power gauge. We have a manifold pressure, which that tells us how much we're pushing into the engine, how much power we're giving the engine, and the prop we're actually setting to a certain RPM, which is just how much the prop is spinning and what bite it's taking out of the air. So we put more, like we can even see on our airplanes, if you are in a climb and a high angle of attack, you'll see the RPM start dropping because you're putting more of a load on that prop. Well, on a constant speed prop, that won't happen. You set 2,500 RPM, you start pitching, and what's going to happen is this is advanced. You don't need to know it. All you need to know is that the blade angle adjusts in a constant speed prop. There is a governor which routes oil that pivots this prop to make it set at, say, 2,500 RPM, regardless of what pitch you're at. If you're in a descent or a climb, it will adjust the prop accordingly. It's like a thermostat to whatever you set that prop at.
And there's a third lever. It's usually blue and in the middle. And you've seen that. That's that.
That's the prop. Yeah. And your throttle is manifold pressure. We don't have that in this airplane. We just have a constant speed prop. It just takes the same chop out of the air. And there are different props you can put on an airplane. You can put a climb prop, which makes it more efficient for climb. You can put a cruise prop on, more efficient for cruise. The constant speed prop is there to adjust for all of that. That's it. Ours is fixed. and this just shows that your prop moves at different speeds, slower, shorter travel, and outside here, the prop is moving faster. The tip is, anyways, very high.
And that's why it's slanted, so that it.
Yep, it's actually curved, so you get different bites at different spots. Questions on that? And that's all you need to know as far as props go. This is the constant speed prop. Okay, this is where you can actually adjust the blade angle, and that's where your mind needs to shift and say RPM is not a power function; it's a prop function. But you guys.
Moving on.
Landing gear, ours is down and welded. That's it. Period. You know, our landing gear, and it's, you got to wrap your mind around this. This is back Wright Brothers stuff, old school, conventional landing gear. Not what we have. We have tricycle landing gear. Because I think like conventional, most everything is conventional that we have. It's all tricycle landing. It's all tricycle. No, conventional is tail draggers. Okay, you have two mains and a tail wheel. That's called conventional. Ours is tricycle. Nose wheel and two mains. That's it. And it is down and welded. We cannot raise and lower it. There are other airplanes that are complex that you can bring up the gear and bring it down via electrical or hydraulic. That's it. Ours we can't. The only hydraulic thing we do have in this airplane is brakes. Works just like your car. It's got a rotor and it's got a disc and it's got brake calipers. When you push on the toe pedals, you pressurize the system, and it takes those calipers and squeezes on the disc to stop. They're independent of one another, so right brake equals right pressure, left brake equals left pressure for differential steering. So go easy on these airplanes. You know, sometimes people kick over the rudder on the ground and they stop it, and the rudder is attached to the nose wheel, and that nose wheel is just cocked to the left. People stomp on the right rudder to get it kicked around. No, generally you have to get it, you got to take a little finesse, a little bit of power, just kind of start tapping on the right rudder, a little bit of right brake to get that nose wheel back around. It's just slow moving. So we need to know too that the rudder pedals are not just there for the rudder, but also there for the nose wheel steering. And brakes are independent of one another, where we can actually use right brake, right pedal, left brake, left pedal. Unless you're using the emergency brake, like in the Piper, that's both pedals. Same time, same pressure. Yep. Where's the emergency brake in the Cessna?
We don't.
Doesn't work.
No.
Doesn't work. Or
Yeah, it doesn't work. Well, yeah.
There's a knob, but
There-
it
yeah.
doesn't come out.
Interesting.
Yeah. Good emergency.
Okay.
Where would we look on a pre-flight for a potential brake issue?
You would look at the brake.
And what would you be looking for?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Red
Yep.
hydraulic fluid.
Correct. Yep. And in the Piper, we have a reservoir where we can look in. In the Cessna, it's
Yep.
deep and can't
Yep.
find it.
And then we get into failures, which, you know, you can get a brake failure where you'll just notice like you'll either lose brake fluid or pressurization in it. You'll know because you'll tap on the toes, and all of a sudden it just goes, one will just keep going or both will keep going. And that's, you know, in a consideration.
Have you guys had that happen?
Just in a car.
Okay, yeah, it's happened in the planes before, and you know it's hard to control, especially if you've got pressure on one side and none on the other. So you just kind of
That
gotta.
happened in King Air a couple times where we lost brake pressure. You know, just, yeah. So and just know, like, sometimes people on takeoff will do that. You know, they'll take off, and after they take off, they'll tap the brakes just to see if you have pressure. Because if you don't, well, now, you know, maybe your flight to reel into just got scrubbed, and you're coming back to a long runway where you can roll and stop and get somebody to help you tow it off. No, just considerations. Cool. Questions on brakes? Pretty simple. Lighting. Aircraft lighting. We have a series of switches in the airplane. Electrical power. Alternator powers it. Alternator fails. Battery powers it. Battery dies. You have no lights. We have different lights in the airplane. Jamie's familiar with the lights in this. We don't. We have a beacon. You have a beacon, no strobes.
We don't have strobes.
Okay. The big key is, you know, a beacon's flashing, airplane's on the ground. Tell yourself and your passengers, airplane's about to start. So if you walk out, you see a beacon flashing on an airplane, the prop's not moving, they're probably about to start. Stay away.
Can you fly without a beacon working, Isabel?
No.
Correct.
It's one of those things, you need it to work. Some airplanes have anti-collision lights where it's just strobes that flash. These don't, it's not required. You do have nav lights, which is kind of, or position lights, which basically tell you which way an airplane's going. You can see it at night more clearly. Right on the green, left, red, and white on the tail, so you know that the airplane's flying away from you, or you're flying left of you, or right of you, things like that. Lane light is there at night. That's it. And also, I turn it on in the day.
Mm-hmm. Or when you're
landing.
crossing over an active runway, you want to light it up.
Yep. That's it. Questions on lights?
Questions on that?
And it's up to you to know which lights you need. In part 91, like we talked about the beacon, that kind of stuff. You need, nav lights or position lights at night. You need them. Yep. So that kind of thing. Flight instruments. Now we're getting deep.
We're getting deep. We got 15 minutes, so
we're good. This is the last thing. So,
yep. This is it.
Flight instruments, and we're getting deep into these. So don't freak out. This is in depth about how the flight instruments work. You'll need to know how they're powered. That's all, and what happens when they break. Flight instruments. They're subdivided into 3 categories. We've got gyroscopic instruments where it's like a top. I don't know. This is old people type stuff. Where it's just you got anytime you get something spinning. Like if I take a bicycle wheel and I spin it and I hold on, it just spins and it stays rigid in space, right? It keeps things up.
I'll show you the.
There's a gyroscope. Okay, so you got these things spinning, and this is a good diagram because it shows in gyroscopic instruments, which are the attitude indicator, the heading indicator, and the turn coordinator.
Going back to it.
Sorry. Yeah, that's okay. These 3 instruments here are gyroscopic instruments. You got these wheels spinning in there, and that one gyroscope diagram was pretty good because it shows it's a water wheel. The heading indicator and the attitude indicator are powered by air, suction. So when the engine's running, you get this vacuum that sucks air into this instrument, and you got those little like a water wheel. You got these little curves inside that, or little scoops inside that gyroscope, where it's just a water wheel where it spins this thing and keeps it upright. You have a backup in your turn coordinator. That's electric. There's no air that powers that thing. And you'll hear it as soon as you turn the battery on. You turn the battery on, you're hearing this whine. That's the turn coordinator winding up. And that's just the gyroscope in there spinning away. That's it. In these instruments, in the turn coordinator, the only thing that the gyroscope is powering are the wings. And the wings level, and it knows whether it's in a bank by the turn coordinator. This inclinometer here, this guy right here, that's gravity. And there's a little tube in here filled with alcohol and a little ball that shows if your coordinator adding rudder pressure. Ball, step on the ball, right? Ball is right, step on the ball, keep it in the center. And that's the gyroscopic instruments and how they're powered. The next is pitot-static, which we have a pitot tube and a static port. This is a Cessna. We talked about this earlier. You've got a pitot tube, which takes ram air, just air that gets fed into this pitot tube when you're moving. And you've got a static port, which is exactly that, static, still air. And all it is doing is measuring pressure. The difference between the ram air and the static air gives you airspeed. The airspeed indicator is the only instrument that uses both the pitot tube and the static port. In the Piper, it's all combined into a mast.
Underneath the wing.
Underneath the wing. So the static port and the pitot tube are in the same housed unit called the mast. That's it. But this is the Cessna Piper, just like that. This just shows you have a heat, just in case you get ice in the pitot tube. Some airplanes have it, some don't, if you're in the clouds. Then the vertical speed indicator and the altimeter just work off the static port. So what happens as you climb? Does pressure increase or decrease? As you climb, is pressure increase or decrease? Air pressure.
Air pressure increases.
As you climb?
Doesn't it?
Negative.
Oh, it decreases.
Yeah, and so it's basically a density thing, right? So So like we talked about this, I talked about this is the way I think about it. Like on the ground here, I'm carrying the weight of the atmosphere on my shoulders, the entire weight right here on the ground. Now as I climb 1,000 feet, now I have 1,000 feet between me and the ground. There's less atmosphere I'm carrying. As I go up, there's even less and less and less until I get up to where this air is very, very thin and less dense. So that's all that static port is doing, is measuring density of the air or atmospheric pressure. So, and then it goes through, which we'll talk about, each instrument has a mechanical way of displaying that information.
Do you want that slide or continue?
Yeah, we'll because the next we'll go through these things here, and then we'll talk about failures.
We won't go too deep on this, but
This is deep. This is CFII and instrument stuff. But anyways, long story short, there's a bellows in here, or these aneroid wafers. It's kind of like a bellows when you use your fireplace and things like that. But this has got a standard set of air that's trapped inside this. So what happens is, this is the altimeter, as you climb, the air comes in through the static port into this housing, and air is less dense. So this bellows, these aneroid wafers expand because there's less push on those things, right? Because the air is less dense. And mechanically, it spins this through cogs and it displays a climb because air is getting less dense as you climb, and it's expanding that bellows, showing you that you're in a climb in the altimeter. And you set in the Coleman window the pressure of the day to set that accordingly. And that's in a long story short, in a nutshell, that's your altimeter. All it is there's a housing there pushing air into it. And then more dense air, as you descend, air is more dense in this housing, compressing that bellows, compressing it down mechanically, shows you a decrease in altitude. Complex but simple. The vertical speed indicator, kind of like an altimeter, however, there's only one wafer in this diagram, this bellows. Still, it's standard set, it's sealed air in here, and now you have a leak inside this not diaphragm, but inside this housing. So you'll notice when you climb in an airplane, if I rapidly pitch like this, well, your VSI, you can actually peg your VSI because it shows immediate climb. So that's what's happening here, is this thing in a climb is immediately opening up because we have air coming in here, which is less dense, and it automatically opens that up. But then air is slowly leaking out, so I can climb and it shows an increase, and then air is leaking out of this case at a standard rate, and it levels off and shows me basically how much this is expanding and how much is leaking out is your vertical speed. It's stabilizing, right? So as I pitch for 500 feet per minute, I've got this bellows that's expanding because I'm climbing, and it's leaking out of the case at a normal average at a rate that's consistent with how much I'm pitching. Basically, it's not the easiest to explain. If you have any other questions, just let me know if I'm not doing a very good job, because it's kind of difficult to explain. But again, it's information that you really, at this point, don't need to know. It's stuff that. Questions on that? And your airspeed, super easy. All it is we talked about this, is pitot tube. The difference between the ram air and static gives you airspeed. Now we need to talk about failures and blockages that can happen in the static port and in the pitot tube or in mast. So now we have, I didn't mention this, in the pitot tube, you've got where the air comes in and the ram air inlet. You have a drain hole out here because you get moisture in there. You fly through rain or you get condensation, or if it's really cold where you're flying, it can freeze that thing. So you do need a drain hole to just drain out some of the moisture. So you have a drain hole in the pitot tube. So this is showing you here a blockage. You got a wasp that built a nest inside the pitot tube. You didn't look at it in your pre-flight. You took off, and so now the drain hole is open, but the pitot tube is blocked.
Or you have your pitot tube cover still on.
Yeah.
Which you shouldn't if you did a good pre-flight.
Done that. Yep. So yeah, and basically what's going to happen is it's going to show exactly that right there. Your airspeed's going to be 0. Rolling down the runway and you get no airspeed. Abort. Go back and figure out what happened with your blocked pitot tube. That's it. And go ahead.
What's the best way to check the pitot tube? Like I look in it and I like blow in it.
That's
What are you
I would not blow in that.
no blowing of the pitot tube
Yeah,
necessarily.
good blow.
She's out there blowing the
Yeah.
pitot. I mean, that's not even a good picture, anyways.
Yeah.
But let's not do that. But no, you can only check what you can visually check.
look in the
There's
little-
no, yeah, you're just
like-
checking because your second check is going to be when you're on the roll.
That's it.
You know, when you're on the roll and your airspeed's not alive, you're going to abort. There's something, because sometimes when that's happened to us in the past, there's a bug way back there. You're not going to be able to see, like, you're not going to be able to catch that. And that's why we do put that pitot tube cover on. I don't know if you guys saw the video I posted recently with the moth that was like on the pitot tube. It was like, they're there, they're ready, they're looking, they want places to hide. So that's why it's important to put that pitot cover on. Because it's an expensive fix and it's a pain in the butt fix to get to.
Yep.
But yeah,
The static port on the side, I just like look at
all
it.
you do is look at it.
Don't touch
Just-
it.
there-
Okay,
there's
don't touch
there's
it.
no
Because
tool.
your oil is
Yeah.
your fingers can get in there.
Yeah.
Just look at it, inspect it. You know, I mean, if you want, you get out there and get a wrench and take the spark plugs out and take a look at those things. Really, I mean, we got to draw the line somewhere.
Mhm.
And
Alright.
that's it. Just looking
Yeah.
at it.
Basic visual inspection.
Correct.
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 That's the right answer for your check ride.
Correct.
Yep. So there we go. So long story short, know that in the pitot static system there are 3 instruments: airspeed indicator, vertical speed, and altimeter. The airspeed indicator is the only instrument that uses both the pitot tube and the static port. So here we have the complete blockage of the system. The pitot tube is blocked, the drain hole is blocked. That B that was making an S right here, you just rolled down the runway, just went boop, and it got stuck right there, and now you got the hole up, and now it's completely blocked. Well, what's happening now is that the airspeed indicator is only using information from the static port, and it's going to act like an altimeter, and it's going to tell you some weird stuff, like you're going to start climbing and your airspeed increases. Does that normally happen? No. So we're like, that's weird, and then you cross-reference your other instruments, like this is weird. So that's what happens when you block the drain hole and the pitot tube. All you're getting is information from the static port. So now you're climbing, airspeed's increasing, descending, airspeed's decreasing. That's backwards to what you normally think. That's blocked. These are all fair game for a check ride.
Yeah, I was just gonna say these are ones you'll have to. And if you understand the concept, it starts making more sense when you're explaining it to the examiner versus just like spitting it out and understanding in your head, and the visuals help too.
Next, we've got a blocked static port.
Static port.
Okay, so again, the airspeed indicator uses both, so that's going to be goofed up. And all you need to know for your airspeed indicator is going to give you inaccurate airspeed indications. What that inaccuracy is, I don't know, but static port's blocked, it's inaccurate, something's not right. Your vertical speed indicator will indicate 0 if you're static port, so you're in climb, and you know, because we're VFR pilots, we're looking out the window, and VSI is 0, and your altimeter, say you're at 2,000 feet and you're climbing, well, it's stuck at 2,000 feet because that pressure is just trapped in those lines. So that's all it knows. There's stable. Everything is stable inside those instruments. No air going in, no air going out. Those aneroid wafers are stuck where they're at. That's it.
And that's happened. So you wonder how a static port could get blocked. I actually had somebody wash my airplane once, and went to go pre-flight. And sometimes when they wash your airplane, they put tape over the static port because they don't want to get anything in it. Sometimes they forget to take that tape off. So I was like, oh, okay. So if I wouldn't have checked that, then I would have had this happen to me in flight. So check and make sure no tape's on your plane.
Yeah, that's another just topic. Like, anytime an airplane comes out of maintenance, thorough pre-flight. Don't just walk around. Like, really look at stuff because maintenance forgets stuff. Tools, tape on stuff.
Rags in the engine.
Yep. I know an airplane where crashed because of maintenance issues.
Yeah, one just recently did up here because of a screw. Well, pilot couldn't check for this, but it was a screw that was in a spot that they probably couldn't have seen. But yeah, when it comes out of maintenance, that's the time you think it'd be the safest, but no.
Yeah.
Check it. You're the
Yeah.
ones flying, so.
Yep. So now we've got
Vacuum.
a vacuum system, or these are gyroscopic, okay, instruments. We have 3 in the airplane: attitude indicator, heading indicator, and turn coordinator. Well, now we're talking about power. What powers the attitude indicator and heading indicator is vacuum air. That's it. This vacuum is getting sucked into the system, and it's sucking. Here's the filters sucking through here. This vacuum pump is going out, and it's spinning those water wheels of gyroscopes inside those instruments. That's all it's doing, and keeping those up. Your heading indicator, you've got a little knob. You adjust it to your compass because it's dumb. It doesn't know anything. All it knows is gyroscope spinning. You set it, and through mechanical linkage, it tells you your heading. It's subject to precession, which is just on a gyroscope. As things move around, the gyroscope gets a little wobbly and it gets off a little bit, and that's why every now and then you adjust your heading indicator to your magnetic compass. And your suction gauge is there. If it shows 0, and you're going to notice your attitude indicator just goes on the side and wallows over and it's done, it means that it's not spinning anymore, it just flopped over. Heading indicator is not moving. Well, you've lost those 2 instruments. That's it. No big deal. We're VFR pilots. Look out the window.
Nope, exactly.
Yep. Turn coordinator.
How did you lose the suction?
The vacuum pump died.
The vacuum pump died.
Yep.
You know, when you check on when you're doing the run up, you're making sure it's between a 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
It could not, that could go to 2 or 3, and it doesn't have enough suction, and then it could look okay even on the ground if you just have a little bit. Then you get in flight, and it's not good.
So electrical or air, some sort of
Yes.
problem there.
So, well, for your the gyroscopic instruments, this is the only electrical gyroscopic instrument is your turn coordinator.
Oh.
The other 2 are air powered. So,
Okay.
meaning like that suction, that vacuum is powering your attitude indicator and your heading indicator. If you lose suction, only those 2 instruments will die. This will continue. If you lose your alternator and you lose electrical power, this will die, but your attitude indicator and heading indicator will continue to operate because your engine's still running that vacuum pump. That's it. And this is great here because it shows you a failed turn coordinator. How do I know it failed? That little red window. When you see the airplane sitting there on the ground, no power on it, you should see like a little red flag saying it. You turn the battery on, you'll hear that spin up. That red flag goes away, and now you know that gyroscope is spinning. That's it for the turn coordinator. And this is really your turn coordinator. As VFR pilots, the wings you don't need anyways. You're not using those. You're not instrument pilots.
Mm-hmm.
You're using the ball to keep the airplane coordinated.
That's why we can in-op that portion of a turn coordinator, and we have. It's gone bad in the past, and we could in-op it because
It's not required.
Yeah.
So the ball is what you're using to coordinate the airplane. Now, instrument-wise, different story. Magnetic compass is cool because all it is a magnet. It just detects magnetic fields in the earth, and it's contained in a bottle of booze sitting up there, spinning in a magnet, and it's got a display on it showing you north, south, east, west, and different headings on it. That's it, and you need a magnetic compass to fly to see which direction you're going. Nobody ever uses it because we have turn coordinators, and now you got handy for flight, which is brainless, and that's where you're at. Magnetic compass, that's it. It's got certain errors in it too, but that gets into instrument stuff, which at this point we don't really need. So you know that you need one to fly.
I had a bunch of questions I was going to go over, but I'm not going to do it because we are out of time. But any questions top of your head that you guys have for us today?
They asked all mine.
Good job.
Any questions? We're here, so please ask away. Questions at home.
You guys learn a lot?
It's good fresh.
Okay.
Fresh out.
Good.
Yeah. And again, don't freak out. This is stuff that's not like your oral is gonna be an hour on your Checkride, and they don't have time to ask you all this stuff. And it's stuff that now you've seen, you've heard, and you power